Cenk Uygur actually had somewhat of a debate with Roland Martin on his show Unfiltered about Cenk Uygur's run as a Democrat, where progressives stand in the Democratic Party, and how we can actually get some type of wins for progressive policies in this country. Through all this rambling, there is one thing that neither of them mention in this discussion, which is very obvious as to why things are working the way they are. And I think they're very much aware of that. But again, Roland Martin, he is pro-Democrat. He's actually one that'll tell you to vote for Joe Biden. You'll see in this conversation, he's cheering on people like Beto O'Rourke. So he has no problem with Dem establishment. Cenk Uygur calls himself a progressive Democrat. But at the end of the day, they're both Democrats. They're both fine with being a part of a corporate party and dealing with all of this jazz. Let's get into this conversation here. There's a couple of things I want to debunk that's a part of this conversation that they obviously leave out.
I've long maintained that when we talk about big tents, that the Democratic Party actually has a much larger tent than the Republicans. Republicans, you're either right, far right, or fascist. But then when you talk about Democrats, you have conservative Democrats, you've got moderate Democrats, you've got progressive, you've got far left. And Democrats have always had a difficulty on bringing this coalition together because it's so varied interest. Yet your thesis is that progressives are going to take over the country. How?
Yeah, so mainly by younger voters, honestly, and it's not that difficult. The only thing we got to make sure doesn't happen is that Trump doesn't win in 2024, because that could just end democracy. But as long as we have democracy, in 2016 and 2020, Bernie Sanders was winning younger voters in massive margins, and I explained.
Let me just pause here because it's already hitting off on the wrong foot, right? Cenk Uygur said, as long as we have democracy. But we don't. We don't have true democracy in this country. Cenk Uygur knows this. So why is he sitting here in this conversation pretending like we do have democracy when he knows that we don't? He knows we don't have true democracy in this country because he knows that the DNC is able to cheat people whenever they do it. They're cheating him right now. So why is he sitting here pretending like these things are not happening? Disingenuous.
That in the book by 40 points, 50 points. And so younger voters, though, kept getting older and older because that's normal. That's what happens. So by 2020, he was winning under 45-year-olds. And now when you look at the polling, under 50-year-olds are now massively progressive. We just need one candidate to spark a fire, and we're going to easily take over this country. Because, Roland, progressive ideas are intensely popular. Almost all of our policies are favored by 2/3 of all Americans, let alone the huge margins we have with young voters.
But
how are you going to take over the country? He says you need a firebrand, right? So like Bernie Sanders, someone say Bernie Sanders was that firebrand. You need a firebrand. But it's not about whether or not you have a firebrand if you're running in the Democratic Party. It's about whether or not the DNC is actually going to allow you to become the nominee. Unlike the Republican Party, the Democratic Party has super delegates. That's actually what screwed Bernie Sanders over in 2016, when the super delegates decided to give states to Hillary Clinton that Bernie Sanders had pretty much won outright. That's where the DNC fraud lawsuit came in. So it's not about that. It's about the fact of whether or not the DNC and the donors are going to allow that candidate to become the nominee. And the only way that is going to happen is if it is someone who is establishment. And we need to think about what the word progressive means today, because now there are Democrats like Katie Porter calling herself a progressive, when I would not consider Katie Porter to be progressive. If you're out there shilling for the state of Israel and you won't acknowledge that the Palestinian people don't have self-determination and don't have the same benefits and are fighting for their lives just to basically exist in the country that they were a part of, that they're trying to push them out of, I would not consider you to be progressive. We had pundits out there calling John Fetterman progressive when he clearly told you as a candidate when he was running that he was not a progressive. So we need to think about what the word progressive actually means, because the Democratic Party has co-opted that word to apply to anybody now.
But isn't that part of the problem? Is this notion of a candidate striking the nerve? I look at Texas. I'm born and raised in Texas. I'm still a registered voter there. We had Beto O'Rourke, who was running for governor. 75% of voters under the age of 30 didn't even vote. This guy went to every county. He was out there. He was going to college campuses. He was talking about the issues. We're seeing what they're doing in Texas when it comes to abortion, when it comes to voting rights, when it comes to education, whatever. Yet young voters didn't show up. So I get your argument about.
Pause. This guy brings up Beto O'Rourke. Cenk mentioned a firebrand. Beto O'Rourke was not a firebrand. Beto O'Rourke was an establishment Democrat who said one progressive thing, which was, we're going to take your guns, right? Obviously, that doesn't work in a state like Texas. But he's not progressive. But that's who, to Roland Martin, in his mind, when you say firebrand and you say progressive, he thinks about Beto O'Rourke, a corporate establishment shill. Beto O'Rourke was taking money from ExxonMobil, and he wants to complain that young voters didn't show up to support him. This guy was corporate. He was not progressive. He's just a rich dude playing politics. You guys know that, right? Beto O'Rourke is a rich man who's just playing politics. That's it.
The numbers with Gen X and millennials, but they got to show up.
Yeah, but Roland, two things about that. Number one, you don't have to worry about under 30-year-old voters anymore, because like I said, younger voters aren't that young anymore. That generation has grown up and they have remained as progressive as they started. So now we're talking about millennials and Gen Z. And so we're talking about two generations. So under 50, the minute we reach about 55, which is the next election, that's the majority of the voters in the Democratic primaries. We win the Democratic primary and we win the general election easily.
But 55 plus votes, though. I mean, when I look at the numbers, especially African Americans, 65 and older, they're like, man, you need to call me. I'm going. 55, 64, they're voting. The problem is when you drop 54 and below, that numbers keeps going down.
Yeah.
And the reality is, it's not always going to be a candidate that excites me. Shouldn't issues be exciting people?
But what issues are the candidates running on? You see, and let's be real, because Roland trying to play dumb. Okay. Bernie Sanders excited people because of the issues that he was running on. He won the younger base, because he was running on issues that appealed to that group. Free college, canceling student loan debt, Medicare for all, giving everybody Medicare, right? So he ran on issues that actually appealed to that base. So when Roland Martin tells you that shouldn't the issues basically inspire those younger voters to come out, that did happen. That happened in 2016, and that happened in 2020, where the younger voters, remember, especially in 2020, Bernie Sanders had the youth vote. Let's all remember that. Now, all of a sudden, Roland's trying to pretend like that never happened. That being said, after 2020, when Bernie Sanders told his supporters to support Joe Biden, some of them did, some of them stayed home. After that, no, you can't expect these kids to become inspired again, to go out there and believe these politicians run on the. You can't expect that to happen again with someone running through the Democratic Party, because they got played. They were played 2 election cycles in a row, 2016 and 2020. So Roland Martin is trying to blame the voters instead of blaming the politicians for not implementing policies that actually will benefit that base.
So, Roland, there's so many things to say about that. Number one, you're right. The issues are the things that matter the most. But the problem is that our system depends on media coverage. So I'll give you a perfect example. Paid family leave is at 84%. It's not like you have to convince any more people in a democracy that should pass easily. That's moms getting 12 weeks off after they have a baby. Literally every other developed nation does that. We're the only ones that don't. And almost every nation on earth does it. Estonia gives moms 82 weeks off, but Americans say we get 0 days off. It's unbelievable. It's unconscionable, right? So we've already won on that issue as we've won on almost every issue.
Pause. He's talking about paid family leave. Why are we waiting for one presidential candidate to implement paid family leave for people in this country? I want to show you a faster way. We'll get back to the video, but I want to show you another way that this can be done. You guys know how I feel about local actions and what we can do in the state. I want to let you know that Massachusetts passed paid family leave. Here's an example here. Massachusetts passes groundbreaking paid family and medical leave law. So let me just go here. So you'll see there are other states, map of paid family and medical leave laws. Washington State, it usually starts West Coast first, by the way. I don't know why, but it usually starts on the West Coast and it goes to the East Coast, and then it kind of makes its way towards the middle. Washington State, California, New Jersey, New York, obviously here, Massachusetts. And is that I can't even see what state that's pointing to. I'm sorry, guys. They should have just pointed that out. And then also Hawaii, states with temporary disability insurance only. You'll see Hawaii right there. But I can't even see. I think are they pointing to Maryland? That might be Maryland. I can't even see what they're pointing to. Damn it. Anyway, let's go down. Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker signed into law today a groundbreaking paid family and medical leave law. Massachusetts joins California, New Jersey, Rhode Island, New York, Washington, D.C., and Washington State, which have already passed paid family leave and medical leave laws. Goes on to say here, Massachusetts law began providing benefits in 2021 and will cover nearly all private sector employees. The law offers 12 weeks of job-protected paid family leave to bond with a new child, including a child newly placed for foster care or adoption, to care for a seriously ill loved one, or to address the impact of the family member's military deployment. It is also the first state law in the nation to allow workers to take job-protected paid time off up to 20 weeks for their own serious health needs. And for those caring for veterans or service members injured or sick as a result of their military service, the law provides up to 26 weeks of job-protected paid family leave, the first state law to include additional paid time for military caregivers. So I ask you this question, and we'll get back to Cenk. Why are people sitting around waiting for a president to implement a law that we can get passed in the states? This is where we got to push for the local actions. By the way, for those who are not aware, Governor Baker was a Republican. Governor Baker was not progressive at all. And considering we had the pandemic in this country, after the height of the pandemic in 2020, every single state should have pushed for paid family leave and Medicare for all in the states. Every state should have passed it. So what are you talking about, Cenk? Why are you sitting around twiddling your thumbs, waiting for a presidential candidate to implement something that we could get done here locally in the states, guys? We are our own heroes. We are our heroes, not the presidential candidates, not the president of the United States. Some of these things we can get done right now. Let's get back to this discussion.
But the problem is the media will then take that, and when Joe Manchin kills it and Joe Biden ignores it, they'll say, oh, they're the moderates. Well, that's not the moderate position. That's a 16% radical extremist position. So why do you need a candidate to galvanize these folks? Well, that's because the candidate is what draws the media attention. And the problems with like Democrats and why I entered the presidential race is because everybody whispers. Everybody whispers. Stop whispering. Donald Trump screams from the rooftops, and whether we hate it or not, it works. Meanwhile, Joe Biden goes, and then doesn't propose paid family leave as a standalone bill, doesn't propose any of these bills that are 70% and higher, never fights Republicans. We need someone who's a fire breather, who's going to fight for Democratic voters and the American people. The minute you have that and that person gets media attention is the minute we win everything easily.
But how? Okay, so then explain to me then, how does a Beto O'Rourke lose to Ted Cruz by 2.5 points?
Because Beto O'Rourke was not a firebrand. I don't understand. Guys, do you understand what's happening? Roland Martin, he's supposed to be the voice for the Democratic Party, reaching out and expressing issues that also affect the African-American community as well. But Roland Martin, like many that are part of his generation, and no shade to you guys, but many that are part of his generation are continuing to push for things that hold us back. This is why we don't get anywhere. People tell me, how come there's no changes? Think about all the things that activists were able to accomplish in this country. Think about the civil rights movement. Think about the women's rights movement. Think about the worker movements that have happened in this country. Do you think they just sat around saying, well, Beto O'Rourke? No, they weren't waiting for these politicians to come do something for them. They got out in the streets and they pushed with their movements and their activism, and they demand. What are our demands? Because you have to have them. But Roland Martin, you are holding us back. People like you, that in the end, after we watch this genocidal maniac who's supported by Joe Biden, in the end, let's just keep it real. Because Roland, you're going to tell your viewers to support Joe Biden. You were holding us back. Members like you, the Black Church, the Greek organizations that people like Jim Clyburn constantly cater to, you're holding us back. You're keeping things exactly as they are. And people like me, man, my generation, we're tired of that. We're tired of you holding us back. You got yours. Let's keep it real. A lot of people don't want to mention this, but I'm going to go there. Some of you that are Black boomers, you got yours and you kept on moving. You got yours. A lot of you have these things. A lot of you have a house. You don't want to hear about no Medicare for all because you're already at the age to have Medicare. So you all set. You don't want to hear about pushing back against police brutality and all that stuff because you like, no, we had Martin and we had Malcolm and we had a civil rights movement. We need to be happy for what we have. No, fuck that. Y'all sold out. You got comfortable. And the rest of us, we just got left behind. Because instead of empowering us to be the next Malcolm, to be the next Martin Luther King, you told us to vote for Jim Crow Joe. Come on, man.
Comes back, same Beto, same fire breather, same passion, same hard campaigner, same big fundraiser, loses to Greg Abbott by 11 points.
Yeah. No. So first of all, Beto, not a fire breather. Look.
Well, come on, Jay. I mean, my goodness, how much? It's not like Beto was a passive dude compared to other Democratic candidates.
Yeah, I know, but Roland, we're talking about a different level here. So let me explain what I mean. So when you say paid family leave, for example, that sounds boring, and then people are like, "Hey, what is that?" And if you go, "Hey, I'm in favor of it," you're not going to get the 84% animated. You might get them to go, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense, and I like that." But then that's if they hear, but most likely they will not hear. Here's how you say it to get people's attention. Why do Republicans hate moms? They claim to be pro-life, but they hate babies and moms. Now, everybody in the press, if you're as large as Beto O'Rourke was, would cover that story. And they say, "Oh, that's an outrage. How can you say that Republicans hate moms?" Well, they won't even give them 12 weeks off. They won't give them a day off after they deliver a baby. It is true that they hate moms. Let
me pause here for a second because Cenk is, again, he's trying to make this the attention to be on the Republican Party. And I want to be very clear. When we talk about paid family leave, see, this is how you got to discuss these things. Stop making it a partisan divide. This is not about Republican or Democrat. We talk about paid family leave, which I just showed you from Massachusetts. It's not just about moms. It's also about taking care of an elderly family member. It's also about just being a caretaker. It's also about people that have to deal with family members that are actually in the military and they have to leave to serve overseas. It's about those types of things. It's not just being a mom. Now, Cenk could have actually really nailed this if he didn't make it a partisan divide. This isn't a partisan divide. If you are a parent, if you're a caretaker, if you have a sister, a brother, a father, a mother, if you have a member in your family that's a member of the armed forces, this is about all of us. This is the thing. This is why I don't get these people, man. I don't get these people. You didn't learn anything from 2020? You didn't learn anything from 2016? The way you appeal to these people is not by saying, oh, well, the Republicans want to do this and the establishment Democrats want to do that. Paid family leave affects everybody, and it would benefit all of us. And the federal government has enough money to make it happen. I said the same thing about the schools. Public schools got to be funded by property taxes. That's bullshit. The same way the federal government funded the Dodge schools that I attended is the same way the federal government can fund those public schools. We're not talking about this the right way.
On behalf of corporations who are all paying them through campaign donations. But Democrats never say that. They never even go to the number one issue that they could use against Republicans, corruption. And the reason they don't go to that is because they also take corporate cash. So if you have a clean, progressive candidate, and this is the giant if, though, Roland, which is that the press pays attention to and is willing to hear out, and then the country will hear these. But you can't just whisper it. And Beto is not enough of a fire breather. He hired the same campaign manager as Joe Biden. When his campaign was over, she went to Joe Biden. These are super moderate consultants that advise all of their Democratic candidates. Shh, don't be impolite. Are you nuts? Donald Trump already won the election. He's almost certainly going to win this next one. And he's the most impolite guy in America.
So
Wake up, Democrats.
And why is that? It's not because Donald Trump was a firebrand or was impolite. That's what Cenk is trying to allude to. No, Donald Trump won because the American people needs were not being met from his predecessor. Obama made a lot of promises and did not deliver. Barack Obama gave you Donald Trump. Think about it, folks. Now we're in another situation where Joe Biden made a lot of campaign promises, did not deliver. We still live in a country where the federal minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour. Give me a fucking break. Did not increase it at all. No $15 minimum wage. Nothing. So now, once again, we are in a situation where the Democrat president will give you Donald Trump. Donald Trump was able to win in 2016 because he spoke to working class people in a way that Hillary Clinton failed to articulate. Hillary didn't know how to talk to people. She talked at them. And you can't go into those towns talking to people like they're less than you, whether you think they are or not, talking down to people in those towns because you sit up on your high horse and you came from a privileged elite family. You can't talk to people that way. So he knew how to relate to those people. So how we get back in this situation again? Because the Democratic Party did not deliver.
Democrats.
So the candidates you're describing, who are they? Like, for instance, right now, name me 3 candidates that have won statewide that fit your description of being this fire breather. If a Beto wasn't in that category, who?
So there's only one that comes close, and that is because several generations of Democrats have been taught and trained to be obedient, to be civil, do not cause any good trouble, do not cause any trouble at all, lay down and let the Republicans run over you. On a state level, to give you the very specific question that you asked, the answer is John Fetterman. and he beat the hell out of Dr. Oz when he couldn't even speak, when he had a stroke and everybody saw he couldn't speak. Why did he beat the hell out of Oz? Because he was impolite, because he made fun of the brother 24/7. He crushed him. He was merciless. And if he hadn't had that stroke, he'd probably be the next president. Here's a candidate at the presidential level. Me. Okay, so
here's the first mistake. Cenk Uygur is actually, he's sitting up here pretending like John Fetterman is progressive, and he's not. John Fetterman won. Part of the reason why he won, which Cenk Uygur won't tell you, is because he was endorsed by Hillary Clinton. He was endorsed by a corporate Democrat. You guys can look this up. Okay? John Fetterman won because he vowed to support the state of Israel, Cenk Uygur. Publicly said that he would. Denounced BDS. Did not support the Palestinian rights. That goes far when you are running for a position in Congress. So John Fetterman didn't face all of this money being put up against him at the last minute like others did. That's who he chooses to bring up. John Fetterman, not a progressive. Let the Fet go. Okay? Progressive Democrats still want to hold on to John Fetterman as their golden horse. Let the Fet go. He supports the genocide that's happening in Israel. He backs Joe Biden's actions. He does not support the Palestinian people. He's nasty as hell to people. Let John Fetterman go.
Now, I got an incredibly hard road. Everybody knows that. I'm not a natural born citizen. I'm born Muslim. I'm a talk show host, not a politician. And so I got 1,000 obstacles to get over. But you know what? I'm all over the press and I'm screaming from the rooftops things that everyone agrees with. And whatever show I go on, Roland, it's not just left wing. Even when I go on right wing shows where they're like, yeah, well, higher wages would be good. Lower drug prices would be good. Wouldn't it be amazing if there was actually a fighter against corruption and on behalf of all these issues? You take my attitude, you put it on someone that the press considers quote unquote credible, and that person wins easily. Go fight. Republicans fight like crazy. That's why everybody's going to show up for Donald Trump and nobody's going to show up for Joe Biden because that guy doesn't fight for anybody.
Okay.
No one's going to show up for you either, Cenk Uygur, because the reality is you've already been removed from the ballot in Florida, Massachusetts, North Carolina, and Tennessee. So let's keep it real. What is Cenk Uygur even talking about? He knows he has no shot. He just wrote a book, though. He knows he has no shot. He knows that the final decision comes down to the DNC. He knows that. But he's telling you he got a chance.
So you say you said one example statewide is a Fetterman. So you say one example statewide is a Fetterman who right now is getting blasted for his position regarding Israel.
Don't cough in the mic.
But you also talk about someone like yourself. Yet when you ran for Congress, you only got 5% of the vote.
Yeah.
So if you could not make that work in a congressional race, getting 5% of the vote coming in fourth, how you think that works nationally?
Yeah. So first of all, so you're not wrong to bring that up. I totally get it. I got 6.6%, and that number sucks. Okay. And so you say, okay, why come this didn't work? Okay, so at a local, and then how dare you on a presidential level? Let me explain both sides of it. So number one, at the local level, it's harder than the presidential race. And I know because I just did both. I'm in the middle of doing one, I did the other one. And so why is Congress harder? Because mainstream media comes and smears the living hell out of you. For me, they call me anti-Muslim when I'm Muslim. I mean, they just lied about every single thing about my past. And if I saw the articles in the LA Times and New York Times and I never knew anything else about me, I would have voted against me. I wouldn't have voted for an anti-Muslim, racist, sexist, etc. guy. But that's not at all who I am. So they just smear you, and then they never give the mic back, Roland. Like there was no press, no interviews, no nothing. I asked the LA Times, are you guys ever going to write an article about the policy issues in this race? And they literally said, no, we're only going to do the fake scandals against you. They didn't say fake, obviously. And that's it. That's it. All we're going to do is smear you. Now, at the presidential level, it's actually a little bit easier to get the mic. And so when you come in at 6.6% on a congressional race, you're going to come in at 0% on the presidential level, right? I mean, at the presidential level, we got Governor of Arkansas and Governor of North Dakota coming in at 0 and 1%. We got Chris Christie at 2%. So there's no chance that I'm going to get a number at the presidential level, right? Wrong. Quinnipiac poll, 2%. I'm higher than 3 governors. Why? Because, first of all, Young Turk's a nationwide, worldwide show. So whatever I get in a congressional district, I can get at the national level. But second of all, Roland, it's because I'm actually now in a lot of the media. I've been doing a lot of black radio. I've been doing a lot of online shows. I've been doing every kind of show there is. Did Breakfast Club yesterday. Here I am with you, Roland. Today,
I've been doing a lot of black radio, Roland. Look, Cenk Uygur sounds like a used car salesman. The reality is this: he's already been removed from the ballot in 4 states. Not just him, but Marianne and Dean Phillips as well. They've all been removed in 4 states. 2, he was not born in the United States. Now he's a naturalized citizen. He said that he can challenge this with the Supreme Court. I do not see the Supreme Court trying to move aside all these other cases that come their way that are actually much more important than Cenk Uygur's vanity project of running for president of the United States and pushing that to the front and saying, okay, Cenk, we're going to actually help you here and let you get a pass. No. That is not going to happen. Like, this is hilarious to me.
okay? And once people hear this message, they're like, oh, someone who's not just going to sit there, someone who we don't have to beg to do things. As soon as Joe Biden wins or any Democrat wins, and what does everybody do? We all have to beg them to do the things that they promised. We have to push them. Why? We already elected you. Why don't you just do it already? Imagine having a Democrat who's going to get in there and he can't wait to pass bills, because who wins is irrelevant. Who cares if it's Cenk Uygur or Joe Biden or Marianne Williamson? That's just status and title. The only thing that matters is passing bills, because when you pass bills, you change lives. Higher minimum wage, lower drug prices. But we haven't had a Democrat fight like that in 40, 50 years. So the only issue is getting enough media rolling.
Okay, but all right, I get that point, but the reality is you can get a lot of media, but it's not like that still means you get votes.
Right. And the perfect example of that is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders got a lot of press in 2020, right? But Bernie Sanders did not win the Democrat Party nomination again, just like he did not win it in 2016. The DNC decided not to give it to him with the superdelegates. And of course, Bernie Sanders himself told you to go ahead and support Joe Biden, right? He said, don't come out and vote for me during the pandemic. So it's not just about getting the media attention. Yes, that is part of the problem. But if you're getting the media attention and the DNC is what prevents you from moving forward, then the problem is the powers that be, which is the DNC, and not necessarily just the media. The media is one hurdle that you have to get over. But Bernie Sanders is the best example to point to show that he got over the media hurdle, but he still had to deal with the challenges with the DNC.
Howard Dean got lots of media. You had, hell, Vivek on the Republican side is getting lots of media. Granted, voting hasn't started yet, but if you look at polling, it's not like he's killing it.
Yeah.
But again, it comes down to media attention is one thing. As you said, Senator Sanders got lots of media. I would bring up Beto again. Senator Elizabeth Warren got lots of media when she ran 2020. I think her biggest mistake, she should have actually run in 2016. I think that was the biggest mistake. But the bottom line, so I get that. But being a fire breather does not necessarily mean people are going to vote for you. And when you can only name one person statewide in the country, you need 270 elected. You got to win more states to win.
Right.
We're going to end this conversation here because I do want to do call in, but I want to point out something that is left out of this entire conversation. They brought up the issue of the media, the Republican Party. Roland Martin here tried to blame young voters. You know what they didn't mention? The money. What's the biggest issue? The money. Donor money, donor interest, candidates backed by Wall Street, Candidates backed by the military industrial complex, and the DNC gets loads of money. So at the end of the day, the party is corporate. It is controlled by corporations and the military industrial complex. And if you actually want to be the nominee of that party, you also are going to have to agree to be controlled by Wall Street and the military industrial complex. This is not to say that you can't run. They'll let you run, but will they let you get the nomination? And nowadays, you definitely got to be pro-Israel. So there's that. They don't bring it up. Entire conversation, it's just disingenuous. Disingenuous. Let's go to some of the comments, and then we are going to do a call-in. Thank you for the super chat, Dwayne. Hollywood airheads paid to trivialize genocide. That's right. Ashura says Roland has to defend Massa, Joe Biden, and the Democrats. Tia says the word progressive honestly means nothing since you can clap that label on anything like it is supposed to be Scotch tape. Thank you for the super chats, Eric. We need a Roland Martin versus Phil Scott, the YouTube commentator debate, because it would be even more fun to watch. I would love to see that. I would love to see that. Thank you for the super chat, Super Seamster. Wish I had more. Love you and RBN for life, Bakersfield. Thank you so much. Thank you, Aspen Fallen. As Obama used to say, we are the ones we've been waiting for. He at least got that one right. Hashtag save Hardlands Media. Yes, guys, please go show Kit some love over on Twitter. Go to the Hardlands Media account and drop a chat for them. Thank you for the super chat, Willis. Fact Sabby, stay on those shills' backs, Roland. Thank you, Chima. Maryland is a Democratic Party stronghold, yet our politicians won't give us paid family leave, and Baltimore is literally an apartheid state in itself. Yeah, I know. My parents are from Baltimore. I am well aware, hon. And thank you for the super chat, Jay. The Dem Party is not having presidential debates like a demo once. I wonder if Roland Martin has a problem with that. That is a good question.